As your business becomes more globalised and flexible, your international employees form an increasingly important part of your overall workforce. Everything you're doing in your workforce strategy needs to apply internationally too, including your approach to ESG. So how should you, as a tax leader, prepare for ESG changes impacting your international and globally mobile employees? Right now, I'd think about these three evolving areas: your employee value proposition, the way your employees travel and work internationally, and the tax authority's approach towards compliance. Firstly, companies are making changes to their employee value proposition to support their ESG agenda and to meet employee demand. A lot of this includes green employee benefits. For your internationally mobile workforce, it's no different. HR teams are introducing green relocation and transport options, so e-cars, bikes to work, and alternatives to shipping are all popular options. We're also seeing employee benefits introduced to support a more diverse employee population in taking up international opportunities. An obvious example is support with childcare. It's important to understand your tax, social security and reporting obligations in relation to new employee benefits across all your relevant locations and have a plan in place to meet these. In your planning, it's worth bearing in mind that various country tax systems incentivise the provision of green benefits to employees. Secondly, the way your employees travel and work internationally continues to evolve. There's been a big increase in international remote working over the past few years, mainly driven by employee demand. As well as responding to that demand, companies are using remote work arrangements and virtual secondments to support their ESG goals, both from an environmental and social perspective. Put simply, they're reducing the need to travel to access international opportunities, making them more inclusive and more accessible for a diverse range of people, while saving on carbon emissions. Whilst enabling your employees to work remotely from a different country can be a great addition to employee reward and your ESG agenda, there are risks associated with it. From a tax perspective, risks include triggering tax, social security or payroll withholding obligations somewhere unexpected. It's important to consider the guardrails you need around remote work to avoid risk for both the company and employees and have a governing policy in place. And thirdly, in terms of the tax authority's approach towards mobile employees, on the one hand, we're seeing recognition from authorities of this new, flexible way of working. Various countries have introduced digital nomad visas, and the regulatory environment continues to develop. We've seen the introduction of a new EU social security framework, and the OECD and UN are looking at this area with their members. But on the other hand, we're seeing an increase in international audit activity and a tightening of payroll and reporting requirements. Real-time reporting requirements have existed in various countries for years, the UK being a prime example, but more recently we've seen more countries adopt them. We're also seeing an increase in cross-border exchange of information by authorities, and countries are increasing the amount of information employers are obliged to report from an employment tax and payroll perspective. This means it's more important than ever to consider employment tax governance, in particular to ensure your framework for payroll and compensation reporting is robust and up to date. These developments really put a spotlight on governance by tax functions. Overall, I recommend two key actions. 1. Engage with your HR teams and broader business now to understand what changes are being made for your international workforce so you can both plan ahead but also add value to those discussions. And 2. Review your governance processes for your international workforce to ensure you know where and how their compensation should be taxed. Everything that needs to be reported makes its way into payroll at the right time, and you have clearly documented positions and processes which you regularly review and update for any changes. If you'd like to find out more, please get in touch with me.